All right. Hey, chat. So you've heard me say before, sometimes I don't plan to do things, but something makes me so annoyed or so angry that I'm just like, I need to fire up a stream and get something off my chest. So that's what we're going to be doing today. If you don't have X or if you haven't been on there today, I'll fill you in real quick. There is a viral discourse happening right now where there's a section of Twitter that seems to feel very strongly that if you're accused of something, you don't deserve representation, that attorneys are the devil, that if attorneys take a case, they're Nazis, they're the worst person ever. All of these different things that just really get my gears going. So we're going to talk about it. Nick Starr is going to eat something and join us. I sent the link out to a few others. I will drop the link in the chat right now if anyone wants to come up. If it gets crazy back here, I might remove it. Dolly, feel free to use the link. Come up here if you'd like. So how this is going to work is we're going to go through some of the discourse and some of the takes, and we'll look at some reactions from different perspectives. But there's people out here that think constitutional rights either don't exist or shouldn't exist, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that, although I might agree with some of the nuance. So let's get into this while we get our panel friends. They finish up their dinner, their lunch, their breakfast. The main one that got me down the rabbit hole was this one. I don't know who these people are. I'm not asking anybody to go engage with them. But this take here that lawyers are cops, I don't know why they pretend to be anything else. Don't ever claim to be against systemic injustice if the words, quote, "I've represented rapists," come out of your rotten mouth. So right out the gate, if lawyers are cops and they're bad and they're not supposed to do these things, I would take it based on the sentiment here that this person doesn't like cops. If you don't like cops, though, shouldn't there be something to oppose them, to stand as sort of a obstacle to the things that cops do to arrest and start the process of persecuting somebody? If you don't like cops, then how do you also not like lawyers? Who else is going to stop? Like, if you think a cop did something wrong, who's going to stand up for that person? So right out the gate, this take was just kind of like, does this person really know what they're saying? Then this line, "I've represented rapists." And I mean, this jumps a conclusion, right? Because at the time that somebody is taking up representation, there's the presumption of innocence. Sure, you might find out after the fact, somebody gets convicted. Now it's adjudicated that there's a specific outcome. But when you're representing somebody, the presumption of innocence is there. And everybody deserves the right to representation. Even a rapist who maybe out the gate the attorney knows 100%. Sure, one option is they could file a notice. They ask the judge if I can withdraw. I have irreconcilable differences. They can ask to withdraw. Somebody else can be appointed. But that can only keep going and going and going so far until you run into a problem. It's not practical to imagine that every attorney that's out there, everybody that has a law license and practices, can just say, nope, I'm not representing that person. Because then what would happen? If we can't appoint you counsel, there's actually a few states, I think Oregon, Massachusetts, and I think Maine. I don't know if Maine's resolved their issues. But there's more than one area across the country right now where there are issues with public defender shortages for a variety of reasons. But they're starting to dismiss cases because they don't have the bandwidth of attorneys to assign for the caseload. And then now that's getting in the way of a speedy trial, right? So let's look at some of these misdemeanors. Let's get them off the docket because we can't keep up with it. It's just, it's just a lot. There's a lot here in so little words, in so few words. And now this below is the guy, the person that started this. And this is not meant to be a political stream, but I think it's interesting that as a very outsider person to the world of nuanced politics, I would expect some of the people that are like vehemently against this idea that someone accused of something heinous should have representation, should have due process. I feel like it doesn't line up with the rest of the things that they stand for. So this is what starts it, though. This Burger Stalinist guy, primary cat dad, says, I represented someone who did 5 years for texting someone he had a protective order against. It was suicidal ideation. She called police, so the person that he's texting, she called the police for a wellness check because it was apparently suicidal ideation, right? Logic would follow. If he was just calling to pester her and didn't take it seriously, she wouldn't call in for a wellness check. She begged them not to prosecute. He had no record of ever harming her. So here we have a situation where what party, what side of a prosecution is putting this woman on the line? She's asking somebody not to prosecute. We're going to assume that this person, when they say lawyers are cops, means lawyers are defense attorneys, based on everything that follows here. Some people don't realize that prosecutors are also lawyers, right? And I think this person falls in that bucket. But a decision to prosecute somebody falls in the hands of a prosecutor. It's not the defense attorneys that are out there deciding we're going to prosecute and we're going to make this woman get on the stand and make her testify to something that she doesn't even want to be present to testify for. It's the prosecution that calls those shots. Dolly Talk just says, I don't like prosecutors. Aaron says, I'm at the store and I'm mad about it. I will be in the chat because I hate the bad guy rule that the general public applies to defendants that they just don't like. Put your clown makeup on. Perfect screen name for this stream. Says, nobody should have represented OJ. That was BS. Just get out of there. And we have a guest on. You guys already know the name. And Nick, you should be able to stream this to your channel, so feel free to kick that up.
Dun, dun, dun. Well,
we are on our first week, if you want to let it out.
Yeah, well, oh, yeah, I already wrote a bit to this Todd, and oh,
it's like almost, I know I went on a rant, but I had my moment of speechlessness before I got here, right? So I've been looking at this stuff for like an hour. So I went through the phase of, excuse me? What?
Yeah.
Are you certain?
I mean, and that's not what you see here on screen up there. That's not the most stupid thing that
it gets worse.
I have no idea who that is. But this, don't ever claim to be against systemic injustice if the words I've represented. This is a person who completely misunderstands the Western judicial system. We can't select who the rules apply to. Defense attorneys, public defenders, even, I mean, paid. If this person who claims to be, the claim is whatever case they're talking about is, well, he confessed to being whatever it was. Yeah, but if he either, it doesn't matter if he's a public defender or a paid defense attorney, the same rules have to apply. I mean, we do not have a choice, because if we start to select who the rules apply to, yes, this person should have all the rights, but not that one. Well, all of a sudden we leave it up to the state to decide who deserves fundamental rights.
Well, not only that, but there's the, and I agree with it. When you can, typically, when you can afford a good attorney, when you can afford a defense that has the time and resources to put into adequately defending you, you are more likely to get a different outcome than if you were assigned to an overburdened public defender. And again, that's not an insult to public defenders. It's just pragmatics dictate that if you're busy and overloaded, you're not going to do your best work. And that's often people are overloaded into the system, you get stuck with an attorney who isn't giving you 6-7 figures of their time. So
yeah, I mean, I often look and watch Judge Simpson, and on one of these just the other day, there were 3 public defenders the entire day for all the cases. 3. And we are talking about 40-50 cases that went through that day. 3 public defenders. And it will be the same day, same thing 2 days later when it's the next preliminary whatevers. That's the sad truth for public defenders. Now, there are differences between public defenders. I mean, you have the ones who defended Rick Allen in the Delphi case. And then you have the under the bridge troll who who made a 32-second opening statement that I covered a couple of years ago. I mean, yes, there's a difference. First of all, buy a comb. It's not that difficult. Don't sleep in your sports jacket. And at least try to match your clothes.
Honestly,
it shouldn't be that hard.
I know you stream a lot, so I don't know if you caught Hendra Patel's interview over with Brother Counsel, but he went on a little monologue about how, he watches these cases. He watches the YSL trial. He watched a bit of Karen Reed. And when he got accused by Caroline Miller of the attempted kidnapping in the Walmart, this is the Walmart attempted kidnapper.
Oh, yeah.
He said, I want a bulldog. He's like, I'm not just going to get somebody that's going to see what plea they're willing to offer me and tell me I should take it. I wanted a bulldog, so I wanted Ashley Merchant. Or he didn't. I don't think he went into his second choice, but he said he had others that he was looking at.
Yeah.
But that's the underlying principle there at work, is somebody that's actually going to fight for you instead of just letting you be a product that gets churned through a system that just wants a quick, easy conviction.
Yeah, I mean, if I, for some odd reason, prosecutor love, end up in Georgia with being wrongly accused of something I didn't do, prosecutor love, I would call Bruce Harvey in an instant. And then I would have to have a fundraiser because I can't afford him. I mean, but there are I would take because I've seen the public defenders when they have in other courts in Georgia, especially in Fulton County.
And I was gonna say, it's like a public defender against an office, like a team that gets to decide what cases they want to take. And honestly, quite frankly, when they want to take them, I think prosecutors have more power over when they want to take something and move something forward to trial, because they have the power of issuing putting something in front of a grand jury and even starting that indictment clock. So I get statutory limitations exist, but I mean, that only applies when it applies. I know this went. I have a bunch. This went on and on, you guys. We have a take here that says, in relation to the same person, this person admitted that they've defended rapists and helped them get lighter sentences.
So?
It's their job.
Yeah. It's their literal job description. You have to zealously defend your client and its interests.
Well, in a flip side of the innocent people get wrongfully convicted, there's also the case where there was prosecutorial misconduct or some other type of reason where someone that may have actually done something gets their conviction overturned because the process wasn't right. And sometimes that process could relate to ineffective assistance of counsel. Yeah. And what if in response to this person, what if an attorney gets up there and does a piss poor job of defending somebody? They get convicted by the jury, but then the conviction's overturned anyway because the defense said, well, I think my client's a rapist, so I'm going to work my magic and let them go.
Yeah, and what's missing in that context is the prosecution has to agree. This is probably a plea deal they are talking about. My guess is they are talking about a plea deal. Help them get lighter sentences. That was probably a plea deal. And who controls the plea deals? The prosecutor.
Yep, because they don't have to offer at all.
Yeah.
And likewise, there's prosecutors that won't offer pleas to simple misdemeanors. They'd rather take it to court, to trial, if it's, the motivations are there for other reasons, even though they could clear the docket out and move it along in the interest of the public.
Yeah. I mean, there's a saying that if 100 cases refuses to plea, the justice system breaks down, because it's all rests on that 95% of all cases pleads out or are dismissed. Then you have 5% that for some reason that goes to trial, because they don't have time. There's no time in the docket for 100 trials. There simply is no time.
We've seen that type of train wreck. A lot of people on either of our channels watched YSL, and we heard at 2 different points during that trial the realization, the awareness that, hey, the public defender's office in Fulton County is overloaded. Yeah. We ran out of public defenders to assign to people, and we can't move cases forward.
Yeah, the strike in where was it? Was it in Georgia? No, it wasn't in Georgia. There was a strike.
There's one in Massachusetts right now.
Yeah, Massachusetts. Yeah, where not the public defenders, but the private attorneys, who sometimes goes in as a contracted public defender, they are now not doing it because they simply don't get paid enough to handle these cases. That's an issue. We had that example in the YSL trial as well. Miss, what's her name? Who only get paid $5,000 a month, $60,000.
Yeah, Angela DeWilliams.
Oh, Angela DeWilliams, and $60 grand a year. Now that's not chump change, but she's not working 40-hour weeks. She has an office.
There's an extra layer there.
Yeah.
What was her client on trial for in the YSL trial?
Oh, he had.
It was just one count.
Yeah, he had one count.
Because it was RICO in relation to a murder he'd already had his trial and been convicted of.
Yeah.
But they put him on the trial anyway. So that use of resources it's not technically double jeopardy, but it's really re-adjudicating the facts in relation to something that's already been solved in a separate case, just to tie it in what I would say Leah Bossi's words were, my client's here to inflame the jury against the other defendants. Wasting all of that time and resources to tack a RICO onto something that was already adjudicated.
Yeah.
So,
and again, right. I'm not entirely sure that was a proper conviction, because once we learned about this so-called murder and the evidence, holy crap, there really wasn't anything to it, and they still got a conviction out of him because they had his associate, that slightly older female who liked to hang around younger boys. and she snitched. Now she's in prison as well.
And we had a pleading the fifth and immunity.
Yeah.
Spike in her testimony too, which always makes for something interesting.
Yeah, and how she testified. Oh, sometimes I wonder how do people get convicted when the state's case relies on a person whose primary objective is to stay out of prison? Explain it to me, please. Explain it to me. How can snitches be reliable? They can't, especially not prison snitches, who has every incentive to lie.
I was going to say, that's the thing. There are, I intentionally look up overturned convictions or exonerations, whatever mechanism that somebody is either found innocent or has a chance at a new trial. And the amount of times that a jailhouse witness comes up. This isn't just somebody that is out and knew the person. This is somebody that's already behind bars. They're in custody, and they're saying they overheard somebody say something. No firsthand knowledge. No firsthand knowledge of the actual facts. Just someone else sitting there, and there's a ticket that they can possibly get out. Now, I'm not saying nobody's ever been sitting and yapping away and saying something in front of their cellmate that might actually be incriminating, but the frequency with which it happens and the way that the jailhouse witnesses only ever know facts that the detectives have already stated elsewhere, that's where it's extremely suspicious.
Yeah, we have or I have to show you sometime Munch in the Sakura Anderson trial, who went up on the stand and said, yeah, Zach, he confessed to me in his sleep.
Oh, no.
I heard him talking in his sleep, and then I confronted him, and he jumped down off the bed. And I told him, I think you killed him. And he told me, yes, I did, or something of the sort. And it was so unbelievable. And of course, as always is, do you get anything from the prosecution? No, because he is in for a federal crime, and we don't have anything to do with that, blah, 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 blah. Munch, who was charged with kilos of drugs, were facing up to life in prison combined, walked
not an incentive
3 months
at
later.
all.
3 months later. No incentive at all. No. He did it out of the goodness of his heart. I mean, I need
Speaking of good hearts, we've got two individuals with really good hair here. And we've got me with the short hair. We kind of all have the same blonde gray going. Runkle, good to see you. I know you have a show at 9. It's coming up in 20 minutes. So if you want to get a rant off your chest, we were just getting to we went over the lawyers are cops take.
Yeah, I saw that online, and I'm just like, oh my God.
And you're from, so I'm from the United States. I'm not an attorney. I just like to cover trials. And we have both of you guys are from other countries. And I think your take, being able to react to the ridiculous takes about people trying to say a U.S. constitutionally given right shouldn't exist, due process shouldn't exist, is kind of an awesome combination here.
Yeah.
I am just astounded by like the whole, defense lawyers are cops, first of all, because like, if we're cops, somebody should let the cops know, because they do not like us at all. Second of all, every time you're happy that somebody is in custody, be glad they had a good defense lawyer, because otherwise you would have no clue whether or not they actually were, whether or not they're actually guilty, because there have been tons of cases where people have, been convicted of things. And in some of those cases, it's because the defense lawyer, like, totally slept on the job. In some cases, literally. And in some cases, it's bad science, because the courts keep letting bad science in and so forth. Sometimes it's prosecutorial misconduct or police misconduct. But there are tons of cases where somebody guilty went free because somebody innocent went to jail. And, the guilty person isn't going to stand up and be like, hey, you got the wrong dude. I should totally be the one in the cell. But the police often find it to be very convenient to just grab sort of the first person who looks suspicious. And the system is fundamentally built on two opposing forces, right? It's built on the notion that you're going to have somebody arguing strenuously for the prosecution, but also somebody arguing strenuously for the defense. And if you cut half of that out, you don't end up with a system that works better. You end up with a system that just goes completely haywire. And that basically, if there isn't defense counsel, you should be afraid of that system, because that's a system that'll put you in jail just because somebody decided that you ought to be in jail.
Yeah. Then we are in a system where more or less every trial is a grand jury, where you have the prosecution. Here are the facts, and that's it.
I've mentioned before, I had a case where a guy was accused of essaying his daughters, and I didn't believe him. I thought he was probably guilty, but I'm the defense lawyer, so I run the case, right? You run it to the best of your ability because that's the job, right? And I'm going there, and there's 3 daughters, and I suggest to each of the daughters that the client's version of things, his sort of take on things is that, listen, I'm going through a divorce. Mom has put the kids up to this, right? Mom has put them up to it. And so I don't buy my client's story, but okay, we go. And we get to the 3rd daughter, and she goes, yeah, that is what happened. And so suddenly I've got like the record scratch sound in my head, and I'm like, oh, shit. So I go to the next the next oldest daughter and say, hey, guess what the youngest said? And the youngest said, hey, the middle one said, yeah, that is what happened. And then the oldest one said, yeah, that is what happened.
So it went 3 for 3?
It went 3 for 3, and it took the youngest daughter being honest about it to be like, hey, and by the by, Mom, who had been in the courtroom, she bailed. By the time the trial was done, she was nowhere to be found. She was just gone. Like, she just took off. So, I don't know whether my client is guilty or not. I can think, but I don't know. That's ultimately what the court process is there to decide. It's not me I don't get to play judge. And I see we've got somebody saying, thought he essayed his daughter, but defended him for cash. Everybody in the system gets paid, right? Like, the police officers are getting paid, the prosecutor's getting paid. And my job, my role in the whole thing, and it's a sacred role, it's an important role, is to run the defense. It's to run the prove it. Because ultimately, if they'd convicted the client and, he'd gone to jail, it would have been like, okay, they've proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's the way the system works, right? That's the way our system functions. But they need to have somebody there to actually argue the issue in case they'll go, yeah, this never actually happened. Mom put us up to it, or whatever, right? I have had a number of cases where my client looked super guilty on paper. And then when we actually go and run the trial, the prosecution's case falls apart because turns out the client is not guilty. And I don't mean just like not convicted. I mean in the sense of, it becoming clear that witnesses made things up, that they lied about things, that they, because this happens. We expect that this is how this is going, how the system works and how, how this is. So this is critical. Everybody who's like, yeah, it's unethical to be a defense lawyer. Well, no, I entirely disagree. The system relies on it. The system functions on it.
Well,
and the other thing is that
you're bound by ethics anyway.
Yep. And those ethics include that I have to provide a full defense to my client. I can't half-ass it just because of whatever I may think. I am ethically obligated.
And you can't just lie. You can't just lie to the court to save your client's ass. So.
You absolutely cannot lie or make stuff up. Lawyers have a reputation of, that is sort of dishonesty, but that's not actually how we're allowed to conduct things. We can test evidence. We can say, hey, are you sure you saw that? And that kind of thing. But we can't make things up. We can't invent stuff out of whole cloth. We have to run a full defense, but it's bounded by those ethical limits. And it's it drives me nuts when you've got people who, who sort of say all this, because honestly, our system depends on this and it matters on this. And like, this is essential. And I'll just note, every time you hear about somebody getting off on a technicality, that technicality will fall into one of a few categories. Category 1, the prosecution and the police sucked at their jobs and couldn't prove it. And that, are based on how our system works, that results in acquittal. Technicality number 2 is they violated someone's rights, that they, and so when you walk around and the police don't, for instance, grab you, throw you into the back of a van and beat you with a pipe to see if you'll confess, be glad that a defense lawyer is out there, because the cops used to do that stuff. They absolutely used to send out groups to just go and beat people until somebody confesses. And then once they found somebody who was willing to confess while they were getting beaten, that, and the system has evolved since then. And it's largely because of defense lawyers arguing things like, hey, you know what? Just about anybody would confess to stop a beating. It's, this is why we have the confessions rule that would throw that out, right?
You mentioned a technicality being the state didn't come up with enough evidence to meet their burden, right? But there are cases where, and I see it all the time, a sufficiency of evidence issue raised on appeal, or even before it gets to the appellate level, it's still a motion to set aside the verdict at the trial level. And it's very, very rare, almost unheard of, I would say, closer to unheard of than just calling it rare, that a judge at the trial level or at the appeals level will say, yeah, we don't think the evidence on the record was sufficient here. So it's the sufficiency of evidence argument hardly goes anywhere. I see it argued all the time, but for it to be a technicality, I still think you can't just say it's a technicality and oops, we'll let you out if the jury convicted you anyway.
I mean, the thing is that's on appeal, but you do get cases that are lost on sufficiency of evidence at the trial level, and it happens fairly often. I had a case, and the prosecutor was absolutely insane to try to run it. The judge actually kind of suggested, hey, what are you doing here? They found a guy who had a bunch of suspicious stuff in his vehicle that they thought he was selling, and they thought it was drugs. But you know what they never bothered to do?
Test it.
They never bothered to actually test what it was. And so it's the government's burden to prove what it is. And you might think, oh, that's ridiculous. Except here's the other fun thing is when I was a kid, I went and bought diatomaceous earth, which is a suspicious looking white powder. And I was driving home with a big thing, 2 big freezer bags of diatomaceous earth, because they wouldn't sell it to me in less than a kilogram. And I ran into a police check stop, and they were going, what is that? And I was able to talk my way out of it on the basis of, if this was drugs, do you think it'd be sitting on the passenger seat? And the cops went, fair enough, and waved me through. But if they decided to arrest me, I haven't committed any crime other than looking suspicious, which is actually not a criminal offense. Sure.
Some people don't know that. Some people think that is a crime.
And think about how this would have been reported in, in the media. It would have been 17-year-old caught with kilogram of cocaine. That's what the media would have reported. And they would have never bothered reporting we never actually tested it. And they certainly wouldn't have ever bothered reporting oh yeah, we tested it. And then the charges were dropped because it turned and what it would have looked like in court is just that somebody stands up and is like, hey, it's, we're just dropping these charges. They probably wouldn't have explained why. It would have just been that these charges go away. And I see the person saying being accused is one thing. He said he thought the guy did it. Why not excuse yourself? Because you can represent people ethically who you think committed the crime. The prosecution has the obligation to prove it. And if the prosecution can't do that, then they get to lose. That is the way things work. Further, the you can represent people you think are guilty. I have represented people in all sorts of circumstances, and it's not my job to convict them. It's not, my opinion doesn't matter, right? My opinion doesn't mean anything here, because the only person whose opinion matters is the jury, or if it's a judge trial, the judge. Until they're convicted, you are innocent until and unless proven guilty. So legally speaking, that person is innocent right up until they get convicted. If they get convicted, that's just the that's just the thing. Otherwise, how would you get to these cases, right? Anybody is going to look at a case where there's 3 daughters accusing this guy and think, oh yeah, he's probably guilty, because most people in that situation are. But you run the case because you don't know, right? You could think it, but you don't know. And so somebody's got to run that case. The system depends on people running that case.
Yeah.
And, I hope that, this commenter is never actually facing a criminal charge, because I can virtually guarantee you that your lawyer probably thinks you're guilty when you walk in the room. Because most people who are accused of a crime are.
Yeah, and even in my area of law, which is labor and employment, and all that, what that ensues, most people who show up at my doorstep, one of the first things they say, I think I screwed up. And I have to say, back up. What happened?
Yeah.
I think this is a crazy story too. And the YouTube's doing the weird names thing, but I know Eva Starfish says, I saw a body cam video of a guy who had his daughter's ashes in a suspicious looking baggie, and it was horrible to watch. Can you imagine being pressed about the ashes of your loved one and being treated like you're a criminal, you're doing something suspicious?
When my grandmother died, they handed us the ashes.
They do it in a
bag in a cardboard box. And I can tell you, it would look real super suspicious if you were caught with this bag of powder. And you'd also be a little annoyed with the police, sitting there going, we're going to do a field test on this at this point. Yeah. But I should dip out because I've got to get started.
Yeah, you've got your show.
But,
you guys know Ian Runkle. This is going to redirect over to Ian. So if you want to catch more, he's doing his Monday Law Show. Quick summary of topics you think you're going to get at? I think you were having trouble picking.
A little bit. We're going to go through some of the emails. There's 4,000 pages of emails from Michael Morrissey. So we're going to go over some of that. We're going to talk about Sasquatch hunting and how it can affect your family law case. I'm not even kidding. Sasquatch hunting. There's a case of
Don't
a Sasquatch
hunt Sasquatches. They are an endangered species.
We're going to talk about the P320, which is a handgun that has been accused of going off, and how that just got a little more interesting. There's a whole lot of stuff to talk about. We might talk a little bit about something that I've got a video coming out on anyway, that I'll probably put a video out on tomorrow, but it's a Canadian judge was told to follow the law, and she was just like, nah.
Did you see the email from Morrissey to his secretary to remind him of when National Donut Day is? 2 months in advance.
I did not see that one, but
I'm not surprised. Be sure to remind me when International Donut Day is, as if he would miss a single day of donuts.
I'm going to give him some credit on that one, which is I suspect that what he wanted to do is bring a bunch of donuts in for his coworkers and just be like,
Yeah,
hey,
of course, but it's just so funny.
It is. But let me let you go, and we'll once you guys wrap, I'll see you guys there. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
cheers.
well, we'll take a trip over there. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Guys, so
Cheers.
when we wrap this one up, this will redirect, I think, only from... Is that how StreamYard does it, right? It would only be from me. So, Nick, you'd have to link your audience over there
I'm
or something.
streaming. Let me see if I can do it. Yeah, it seems like I can redirect. Okay.
All right. So I dropped the link in the chat on my stream since we're both on the different channels here. We've got a little bit more conversation. I know Nick's probably got a rant. I love a good Runkle rant. I'm very honored that Nick stayed up. I don't know if this is past your bedtime for
It's
Monday
3
going
a.m.
into Tuesday.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
so thank you so much.
It's 3 a.m. I had my afternoon evening nap already. I should have one more, but hey, I can do that tomorrow. I wouldn't miss this
Love
for
it.
the world.
And also, Classy was in here too. I want to give a big shout out to Classy. I opened up a message to send a link, but he's live on his show doing his Monday, Wednesday, Friday independent music stream. He also covers a ton of trials. Always pointing out that everybody has a right to defense. So would have loved to have him on this panel. So big shout out to Classy.
Yeah, shout out to Classy. Yeah, I think people genuinely misunderstand, and I think this goes a number of years back in time, because everybody wants the bad guy to go away, and here you have somebody that you can blame. At the same time, we know by statistics 1 in 20 convictions, criminal convictions, is wrongful, meaning they actually did not do it. It just circumstances made it look bad.
Well, and if it's not a victimless crime, again, that goes back to what you brought up earlier in the show, is that the other person who actually did it still out there.
Yeah.
Not prosecuted.
And a friend of mine, we grew up at the same place. He had his issues, and then he started with petty things and stuff like that. He got caught because, in all honesty, not the brightest kid on the block. But then after a few years, everything that happened in that county, the cops couldn't solve. Let's check with him. And he gave up after a while, because time and time again, they picked him up and he said, let's just save time. But then after a number of these things, you saw how it took away him.
Yeah.
Him as a person, that he simply stopped caring at all. You saw the life in his eyes just start more and more to vanish. And then somewhere along the line, he just made a decision. Well, if they are going to blame it on me, I might as well do it all. He is now one of few people who is in for life in Sweden, because he took the life of more than a couple.
And that's not an unfamiliar concept, right? Where you keep the kid that's bullied, that's going to be the kid that becomes the school shooter, the kid that's poked and prodded, the one that just, like, nothing ever goes my way, so why should I keep trying to do the right thing? I mean, that's that's just a real thing. So
it
not
is.
care.
And I think I once every 3 or 4 years I go visit, and it's just not him anymore.
Just gone.
It's just a shell, and and it started out with lazy cops. Well, it started out with him doing stupid things, but then it escalated with, if we can't find who did it, let's pin it on him.
I think that's the thing. Do you, and this isn't a question to Nick, but just thinking out loud, do we want investigations to go the way they went in the Karen Reed trial and not have a defense attorney there that's ready, capable, has the resources and time to research it and call it out?
Yeah. Imagine if Karen Reed was poor. Chances are she would have pled. And not my favorite. If Karen Reed hadn't woken up when she did, and they would have found Jan at 7, 8 a.m., who would they have blamed? Lucky. He's alone in the truck. Who's going to believe him?
And there would have been people that thought Lucky, beyond a doubt, 100% was guilty. Just because he was accused and it got far enough to make it to arrest, indictment, trial.
Yeah.
There would be a section of people, and I honestly think you guys have expressed the sentiments in the chat. I've been there. I had a reckoning several years ago where it's like, hey, you know what? Just because somebody's on trial, I have this belief that comes over me that I've got to realize that just because they're on trial doesn't mean that they're guilty. Doesn't mean that there is even strong evidence against somebody. Because quite frankly, especially in recent times, watching as trials are streamed, there's more and more cases where I feel like it goes to trial with weak evidence. Or at least maybe it's not weak evidence, but it's overcharged. And maybe the evidence is strong for the charges that are lower down on the rung.
Yeah.
But we still go there for something way up over top.
Yeah, in some areas, if you go by Fulton County, for example, they always overcharge. I mean, you heard about this, was he a football player whose son drowned in the pool or whatever it was? Well, somebody. It showed that he was away for 9 minutes putting bets on, and his kid walked into the pool and drowned. And he more or less got released. And then you have the guy in Fulton County in front of Judge McBurney who pled 24 months probation because his kid was on the swing. He took a phone call, did more or less this, kid falls off the swing, breaks a leg. That was negligent, and he had to take a plea deal for 24 months and parenting classes for basically an accident. And again, he had a public defender. This guy with the kid in the pool, he could afford a defense.
I wonder the difference in statutes too, like
it probably
minimums and guidelines for across the different states. So there's a lot of layers that could go to that, but it is always something when you see something similar happening and one plays out so differently than the other, especially when the difference is whether somebody had representation, whether they took it to trial. Even back in Fulton County with the YSL trial, of course, when you get to the finish line with the verdict that comes back almost full acquittals across the board, we have a full acquittal for Diamante Kendrick and one possession charge for Shannon Stillwell. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, the others should never have taken these plea deals. Yeah, but you just don't know how it would have played out. But
you never know how it would have turned out because the state wasn't finished. They had to cut down on the evidence since it was only those two people left. We don't know what would have been up. And also, that's a big problem with the amount of time between people are getting into jail and actual trial. We have YNW Melly. Now that trial is postponed to 2027. He's been in jail since 2019.
Yeah, and I don't know. I know people are saying, well, if the appeals court moves quickly, they have to set the trial as soon as the appeals court resolves it. And I don't know.
Yeah, but
the turnaround time.
This judge
that could take time.
The judge doesn't have time in his docket in 2026. So
someone else is going to get their trial kicked down the road or something.
Unless somebody else or a bunch of people gets their trial kicked down the road. 2027.
Hopefully they don't do a stupid, like, well, let's just give it to another judge who doesn't know the history of how we got here, as well as this judge
because then it would
does.
be the third judge in the YNW Melly case. And but again, I think happily Jim found a case where a guy has been in jail for over 10 years now without
It's
a trial.
crazy. He's found a ton of stuff, you guys. I'm
Mm.
going to drop his GoFundMe link in the chat real quick. We were talking earlier about it's costly at the trial level to have an attorney represent you at trial. Guess what happens with post-conviction work? Once you exhaust your immediate appeal remedies, you're not entitled to somebody public money to keep fighting.
No, you need to find somebody to take it more or less pro bono, or the Innocence Project, or a group, or anything. And everything costs money. I mean, Sakura Anderson's appeal, we fundraised over $60,000 so far, which is an amazing amount of money. That takes him about a quarter of the way, for unless he goes with the public appeals defender, or whatever it's called.
Say even just the document work. So Jim specifically, his fundraisers just to cover the document expenses.
Yeah.
He's doing the work on his own time, just going the pro bono route. And the documents, let me see where he's at. He wanted let me see. Oh, maybe, did he take it down? Hold on, the link I clicked took me somewhere else. So here we go. But he's just doing it for the documents. So several preliminary documents to do the research just across a few cases. It was more than 7,500 that I think he's got to put in. But a lot of this comes down to, by statute, states will say this is the minimum per page. And if you request something that is 1,000 pages, well, and something's $2 a page, you can see how that adds up very quickly.
Hey.
And it's a give, send, go, not GoFundMe. So there's that in the chat. I'll update this to put it in the description. Also, you guys, there's no shortage of Fulton County content, and I know a lot of people have been looking at a ton of cases in Massachusetts. Have you been covering any of those besides Karen Reed?
Well, Karen Reed, Turtle Boy, those are the ones. Now,
are you looking at the Walsh?
Not as much. I mean, I'm checking in on it, but I don't know how much time I have for it. Then I found the DNA scientist up in Colorado. 652 cases.
Oh, Missy Woods.
Missy Woods. I found that one. And
that's been years coming with her.
Yeah. She was charged in 2023, I believe. So it's 2 years down the line, so it's getting closer. Now the boss of that department, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, now he's retiring. He was her boss, or the boss of the entirety for her entire career. And people warned about her throughout the years that she was cutting corners, and nobody did anything. And 652 cases, those are the ones between 2008 and 2022. Now they are checking 1994 to 2008.
Yeah, that's the thing. Every time I read this was overturned because junk science or expert was manipulating evidence, it's like there are X amount of cases they still need to review, and we've only been able to go through 5. or the person that could be in prison is now deceased. So if they were wrongfully convicted because of this person manipulating something, there's no recourse for that person anymore.
No. What to do? And it's like the Cash for Kids case, the civil suit there. Too many of the plaintiffs were the estate of, because the kids either died in jail, continued to be or overdose, or self-ending. I mean, the hundreds of kids as plaintiffs as the estate of.
Say Aaron in the chat here is doing some work on Marcellus Williams for his estate for relief now that he's been executed. Aaron's always a gem in the chat. I have so much love for Erin. She gives so much education and knows so much about cases. Even in the middle, we'll be talking about an issue. She'll go and like pull the documents and be like, oh, this is actually the specific thing that you were looking for. And she's got a tidbit here that says Maurice Yimerson in Georgia, back in Georgia, spent 10 years in jail before his trial. It ended in a mistrial and he took a deal for time served. Co-defendant was in jail for 7 years before he was acquitted at trial. So it's like, let's say you're facing 10 years
And
you're innocent. Yeah, it's like, I'm innocent, but I might as well just plead out because by the time this gets to the finish line, it's going to end up being worse for me. So I'll take the hit to my reputation. Like the decisions that have to be made really, really suck.
Yeah. And you have what are they called? The Satanic Panic trial. They were in prison for a number of years and they ended up, well, if you take an Albert plea, then we will release you for time served.
If you take an Alfred plea, we'll read the factual basis at trial against somebody else.
Yeah.
Well, we're not supposed to.
Yeah. And the most disturbing thing there is that they are actively letting the killer get away with it because now they have admissions from these 3 or 4 innocent kids or kids at a time. So they no longer care who was the actual murderer. Hey, David Trailer, thank you.
Yeah, let's get this shout out here. So David, shout out to Nick Starrow's chat on the other side. David says, just jumped in, but wanted to say Nick and Kat have the best chats on the internet. I love the chat. I love when I'm over there. I love when you guys come over here. Always love the chat. It's my favorite. It's beyond YouTube, but it's like one of my favorite things about the internet is you can have a chat with a live video.
Yeah.
Because you can't do this with like a live TV show. You gotta go find somewhere else on the internet to talk about it.
For instance, now when I'm looking into the Laura Owens, you know, the tonsil twins case, she is now charged with 7 felonies of perjury and tampering with evidence. It's the Clayton Eckert case, where she claimed she got pregnant with twins through BJ.
I just learned today on your stream that she accused like at least one other person, maybe up to 4 or 5. So speaking
3
of
others,
like,
so
why people need attorneys.
There are 4 who have come forward publicly. One of them was involuntarily disclosed by Ginger Ass or Green. Yeah,
it's just your accent. It's just your accent.
It's my accent. Sorry. But then you have an unknown amount, which I know Megan Fox has been in contact with a bunch, who she also submitted. So not only is she a serial of getting pregnant, TROs and everything,
making the fake documents.
Yeah, faking documents. She has parallel with Maraccini. There was at least one other guy she did the exact same thing to, but that guy, his life was ruined, and he just leave me alone. I don't want to talk about it. Just leave me alone. Yeah. I'm doing a fundraiser on Friday for the Maraccini because despite Laura Owens now being charged with 7 felonies, she wants to have a permanent restraining order against Maraccini because he was a witness in the Eckert trial. And her and Gingras claims that it wasn't a valid subpoena, and therefore he was within 100 yards unlawfully, despite the judge in the case saying, no, it's a valid subpoena. He can be in the courtroom. So now she's searching. So
this is crazy. I was thinking, a little bit of cat lore here.
Which goes back to, what if there weren't defense attorneys for her victims?
Well, and I also, not just
and she still got away with it for a decade.
Some of the takes in today's discourse were also like, if anybody defends the accused, right? And to me, that type of criticism extends to the commentary that we all have together when we get in these chats that David Trailer says are so awesome. Thank you. But it's, the idea of, hey, you know what? I might personally think this person's guilty, but I still think the state needs to prove their case.
Yeah.
There are people out there that think that is just a completely immoral position to hold. And the position isn't me saying I wish for somebody to go out, be free, and do this thing that they're accused of 20 times over. It's just I don't want to see other people go through the same process when they're innocent and end up getting thrown away, their freedom taken away, just because we want to protect the process so badly, even if it has flaws.
Yeah. And I could bet good money that most of these people cheat on their taxes. I could bet that a majority of the boxed wine moms who says everybody's guilty if they are charged are taking a sip on the way back from the liquor store.
The wine moms. Let's see. The cat. This is a bit of cat lore, but you know, I used to
Hey!
comment
Ketchup man.
online for a
Yeah.
long time, like just commenting online. I never had a YouTube channel. And back in the day, I felt like a lone wolf. I saw the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial was being streamed. Started watching it. I remember having what I thought was like a pretty mild and milquetoast take. And I just
Oh.
expressed myself on X. I don't even know what it was, but it was mild. It wasn't comical. It was just a neutral thing. I started getting a bunch of people like, but Johnny Depp said he would burn her corpse alive. Shouldn't that be enough? And I'm like, well, what was the context of how that was said? Anyway, long story short, I'm thinking of this because Ketchup Man's in the chat. And this was my first friend back in the day with the Depp v. Heard, like out in the wild. Like the first person I really came across that was just like, hey, we got to see what's presented here.
Yeah.
We got to see what's presented here. So I know him as Hines. He is now, I guess, formerly known as Ketchup Man Hines with his own channel. So make sure you guys check out Ketchup Man.
Yeah.
I gotta
Check
get
out
his
Ketchup
link.
Man. He is one of the good ones. Now,
But
I
yeah,
remember,
like just the evolution. Like,
I
what
mean-
was the first trial you saw that made you question the way things are done? Like,
Well, I come from another system, and I'm not a trial attorney. I'm a jurist. I'm in the background. If things goes to trial, things are handed over because I have a resting serial killer face. And when I focus, you don't want to see my passport photo. Yeah. If I was suspected of anything and they put up my passport photo, yeah, he's guilty. I mean, but I think the first case I came across, but I was late teens at the time. It's a Swedish case called the Osmo Vallo case. He was an asshole, complete asshole. But he always said that if the cops come knocking, open the door, lay down, take it easy. You can handle the rest later. He was jumped by a bunch of cops, and he was killed. And
there's
the
been...
coroner first abduction said he was stomped to death. Second was natural causes.
Yeah, and
That's
I
a
was
clear
gonna say,
difference. Yeah.
I think there's been a rising call for accountability in, you know, different corrections facilities. Obviously, the Robert Brooks case in New York is a major one. We just had the first plea deal come down in that case, and I think the sentencing was 25, maybe it was 15 years. But there's like 12 other co-defendants awaiting. I think several took pleas already, but a few are taking it to trial. Maybe they'll still take a plea. But it just seems like these cops beating someone to death, or corrections officers beating someone to death, or doing something they shouldn't be doing. It's obviously, I want to say it's on my radar in part because I do look for these cases, but I feel like it's getting more national attention. It's getting more mainstream attention. There's awareness about it and outrage. Mickey Steins. I don't know if you've been following Mickey Steins closely. Tay-Biz TV is doing a lot of coverage on it, but that's the sheriff that shot the judge.
That case. Yeah.
And there's all this corruption coming to light about what goes on in the county, where people exchanging sexual favors to get their fees paid for their ankle monitors, or they're threatened to be thrown back in jails. Like, just horrible, horrible, horrible stuff all around.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I do, because just a few years ago, you had two alternatives. It was court TV or law and crime. Not that long ago, it was court. Before that, it was just court TV. Before that, if anybody brought, the OJ trial and the Jodi Arias trial and this Jeffrey Dahmer trial. But lately, local news stations are streaming trials.
Well, and what I think is probably interesting to point out, and I don't know specifically about court TV, but a little while back, like 2 years, Law and Crime, and I love them for all that they do, but Law and Crime was copyright striking. They were taking down, like, increased exposure reusing the court footage. So there was a fight there to make that more accessible as well.
Yeah. But I mean, it seems like the more trials we get to see, the more we are educated about what's actually going on. And of course, most of the trials that we get to see are somewhat contentious. Some are clear-cut, but those aren't interesting for some reason. But we get to see the contentious one, especially the Karen Reed case.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the people who are opposed to innocent until proven guilty, their stance has just been rougher, harder, unreasonable, because it's gone to, if you don't believe he's guilty, you are a Nazi, or you are a rapist, or you are, I mean, seriously, chill down.
Yeah, there's like it's the language, right? The evolution of language is getting to a point where, somebody does something that might not be admirable, but suddenly the words being used to characterize it and describe it are the most extreme descriptions.
Yeah.
And it's almost making us jaded to the meaning of these words because we're hearing them used in like any context possible. There's a group of people that's willing to slap the label on at the first opportunity to do so.
And it's now I can have fun with those people for a bit. I mean, it's fun to tell them what they really don't want to hear. I sometimes get obnoxious myself. Imagine that. I'm always diplomatic.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't remember, when you get to hang around a group of people and talk about issues, there's going to be probably one person over here and one person over here that are just prone to get into screaming matches, mostly with each other while everyone watches entertained.
Yeah.
But as a group, most people can have a nuanced conversation and say, like, here, maybe that wasn't the right thing to do, but this isn't good either. And everyone can be like, yeah, I can agree with that. And that used to be the normal way to have conversations. It's just not the case anymore.
Now social media invites a bit to more inflammatory discussions. But overall, I think the more trials we get to see, the more people understands the roles of a defense attorney. Because without a good defense attorney, where would Karen Reed be? Without Doug, without Steele, where would the people in the YSL trial be?
Well,
imagine the YSL trial with only public defenders.
Well, and I also think it's the public awareness. Like, you guys that cared so much about the Mahendra Patel, that's the example I'm going to lean on because it's so recent. But he was sharing his stories of when he was booked and he was put in a group holding cell. Some other guy gets booked and goes, I know you, I know what you did. And, you were accused of doing things to kids. You were kidnapping a child. So gets into this group holding cell, and Patel is explaining that, like, now he's afraid. He's in jail pre-trial, and he's afraid because the first coverage of it was this narrative. We have surveillance. We've arrested this guy for trying to kidnap this lady's child. The lady gets an interview on these outlets. And if it wasn't for the counter reaction where people looked at the video surveillance, saw the part of the footage that Ashley Merchant had to go get from Walmart with a private investigator because the prosecution didn't obtain it and or turn it over. where it actually shows the kid falling off the scooter, not just once, but later on falling off the scooter, and she almost runs the kid over. Like, if it wasn't for the public getting outraged, I don't think the local channels would have been so inclined to cover the case continuously. And there's over and over I see it where the initial story is so much louder than what actually ends up happening. Any retractions that come out are always a really quiet byline at the bottom of an article. But if it wasn't for the people caring, these media outlets wouldn't be publishing the additional context that ends up making somebody like Mahendra Patel look not so guilty as initially accused.
And I mean, and then you have my example is the Delphi case. If that case was televised, the discord of it would be completely different. Because if people would have seen the way Judge Gull spoke, rolled her eyes, sighed, I mean, she makes Judge Bev look like a saint in comparison.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah, because Judge Bev is slightly incompetent and lazy. Judge Gull is, if she believes you did it, if she believes you did it, she will stop at nothing to get a conviction out of it. She's not a gatekeeper as a judge. And the sad part is she does it for the defense as well. If she believes the client is innocent, regardless of the evidence, the prosecution has no chance. So in both, she is ruining the system both ways, because she believes the robe on her makes her the ultimate juror instead of the gatekeeper. And it's scary.
Not the kind of backseat juror that we want. We don't want the backseat jurors on the bench. We're fine with the perspectives. Like, I love different perspectives in the chat and like looking at what other people are saying over on different platforms. Because I do think if you guys venture off of like YouTube and you go over to Facebook, or you go from Facebook over to Twitter, it always seems like there's like, it overlaps, but it's a little bit different. The sentiments on different platforms. But yeah, we don't want the backseat jurors to be on the bench. I
will give you an example. Don't pull it up yet.
Okay.
Many of the Rick Allen is guilty says they can absolutely see that it's Rick Allen on the Bridge Guy video. Before the video was released, there was an interview with the owner of the land where the girls were found. Put it up.
All right, before we do that, I do want to give a big thank you to both Kay Schmidt, I've had this up on the screen, and Classy Beats for generously gifting memberships, turning 15 people green. A little bit different for me to have guests on here and do a panel show, so I'm a little out of whack with shouting you guys out, but I wanted to say I appreciate you guys a lot. Always good to see you both. And I want to get this right. Is it Kanaya? I want to say Kanaya. I want to learn how to pronounce people's names now that YouTube's doing this change. So if you're still here, Kay Schmidt, let me know. If not, I'll just stick with Kay Schmidt and not butcher somebody's name.
So again, let me reiterate. This was, on the right you have Bridge Guy. On the left is Ron Logan, one of the earlier suspects. Ron Logan lied about his alibi. His phone pinged 3 times outside of his home near the crime scene the day the girls went missing. That interview was before Bridge Guy video was out. Anyone see any similarities?
Well, I have a question. Why is it selective when somebody wants to use phone information versus when they want to say it's not? It doesn't matter. We don't need to look at that person further. I'm not saying someone's phone pinging should be case closed, but if we just immediately shift and don't.
But in the context of Rick Allen being guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, every piece of information about Ron Logan, that he lied about his alibi, He lied about his whereabouts. He history of violence. Confessed to a fellow inmate when he was in prison.
The favorite thing, right? We
Yeah,
have all of the gems. We have everything that we would
Yeah,
ever want.
Everything a prosecutor would have wanted in something was denied when it came to every third-party culprit defense was denied by Judge Gull. He was denied to bring up the fact that Keegan Klein was in chat conversation with one of the victims, a proven groomer who is now in prison for, I believe, 80 years for thousands of CP pictures, dozens, if not hundreds, of grooming attempts against girls the age of the victims, who also said he was involved in this. Denied as a third-party culprit.
So I know you've been
Defense.
covering the transcripts.
Yeah, I've been
that's
reading
actually that's hard for me to follow. Like the things I can listen to while I'm getting work done. Sometimes listening to things that's words driven, like a transcript, it's just hard. I can't digest it listening. So I'm so out of the loop. But I don't think I've come across somebody that's been following the transcripts and hasn't felt like at minimum it's a head scratcher how we got to the conviction of Richard Allen. And based on, I followed the trial while it was happening from coverage of, I know Defense Diaries, Andrea Burkhart, and Lawyer Lee were going there. And from what I heard them relay from the trial itself, let alone all this pre-trial stuff that I think greatly impacted the trial itself, it all seems fishy. So guys, I know Nick Starro, if you're over here and have not checked out Nick Starro, that's one of the many cases that Nick Starro covers. Also, Miko's Headphones, one of my favorite chatters, shouted out R&M Productions in relation to the Mickey Steins case, which I didn't know that R&M Productions was also covering the Mickey Steins, Judge Mullins, Letcher County saga. I actually know R&M Productions because of the Delphi and Richard Allen coverage. So I'm dropping a link to R&M. She's not here today, but I loved a lot of the stuff that she's done, and hoping I can see some collabs with R&M and maybe you on Delphi and Tay-Biz and R&M on Mickey Steins. It's selfish.
Yeah.
Selfish of me. I like to see other people stream for me.
I have to buzz off. But first,
end this, guys. We're going to go to Ian Runkle. So we're going to end this. To the Monday
I'm
Law
sending
Stream.
my audience over there as well. Now, Wednesday, I am having Solomon Anderson on because there's been a Dr. G copycat talking about the Sakura Anderson case, where she only watched the sentencing. And she has some takes that are interesting. She calls the Rosalio a good man. Okay, you call him a good man who dated and tried to get laid with 3 women at the same time, who owed money to criminal individuals, who may or may not have pushed drugs. Yeah, sure. Let's not bother with the evidence. Let's just check the sentencing and then diagnose him based on what he said during sentencing without a baseline of how he acts. So me and Sol are going to go through that. I suspect that you have to catch it live because I suspect that it might be off air because of strikes.
Sorry, what was the time on that?
Wednesday at 8 p.m. No, Wednesday 1 p.m. Eastern.
1 p.m. Eastern.
Or 1 p.m. Okay. No, 1 p.m. Central. Sorry.
So I actually have a slight feeling that because you guys know I'm covering the Nicholas Casotis case in real time. State's resting tomorrow, and Doug has 3 witnesses on his list. I don't know if he'll need to call Wednesday. I don't know if we'll have jury, but that'd be cool. We can if they end up doing jury instructions or whatever and go into deliberations Wednesday, we'll hop right over there. So that'll be awesome. Nick, thank you for joining. Now, when I end this, does it take your channel? If you've already set your redirect, does it end for you too?
I already set my redirect. Yeah.
I'm just making sure we're doing like a carpool. We've got multiple shuttle buses going over here to Ian's Monday show.
Yeah.
So guys, I'll see. Are you doing anything tomorrow on your channel?
I suspect I will be sleeping tomorrow afternoon, but if I'm doing anything tomorrow, it will be reading of the Delphi transcript.
Okay, so more transcripts tomorrow. You guys make sure if you don't already follow Nick, I feel like you all do, but if you don't, follow Nick Starro, the big Nick. I will be doing Nick
not that
Casotis
Nick, not that other Nick. It's a big Nick.
That one. I'll be doing the Nick Casotis trial. They're starting at 10 Eastern tomorrow, so it's a little bit of a late start. And then at 6 p.m. Eastern, I will, and Missy Mayhem's still in the chat. Thank you for helping coordinate this, Missy Mayhem. I'll be over on Justice Served TV to talk about the Casotis trial with Linda Kenny Bodden and Michael Bryant. I'm so excited. Yay. So excited. So I hope you guys can check that out. And for now, let's all take a trip over to Runkle of the Bailey. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.
And I submit to you, and I'm going to submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, and I submit to you, and I submit to you, but I submit to you, that killer was a prosecutor. I submit to you, and I submit to you, I submit, the evidence will show, and I submit to you, so I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, will be the evidence. Tossed. Second tub is recovered, I submit to you, I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, and I submit to you, you're not going to see anything, but I submit to you, and I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, you will hear facts. And I submit to you, it's like a Q-tip. I submit to you, the evidence will show, but that's the same day. If you recall, you're going to see his car. I submit to you, drive right past it. And I'm going to submit to you on paper. I submit to you, that's what the evidence will show. And I submit to you, you should listen to them very carefully. I submit to you. And I'm going to submit to you, ladies and gentlemen. I submit to you. I submit to you. I submit to you. I submit the evidence is going to show that. I submit to you, you're going to hear. I submit to you. He didn't want to pay that money. He burned the car. I submit to you, that's what the evidence will show. To the ground. And I submit to you, that's what we have. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.